Welcome everybody to the Parenting and Bonding with Children's Book podcast, where we believe that books are magic and have the power to transform homes. On this podcast, we talk to the authors behind the magic to find out the true intentions behind the books. And guys, before I get started here, before we come on, I usually ask the host or ask the guest, how do I pronounce your last name? And I did not ask her. So okay, so we're here tonight with Sandy
Ciaramitaro.
Ciaramitaro.
Yes.
I would not have said it that way.
Yeah, it's an Italian name. Yeah.
How are you?
I'm fine, Quinn. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm not sure exactly when this will show, but on the day of airing, it's the last day of school, and I feel like I'm all over the place.
Right.
But I'm so happy to be talking with you today. Your work is so essential and important, and the books that you put out into the world are for our kids. You know, as we talk about them, people will understand why you are here today. So, Sandy, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am an author and I'm also a teacher. So I'm a high school teacher, even though the books I wrote are for elementary age kids. Mm-hmm. I live in Michigan, and I live in a suburb of Detroit. And, I enjoy my work tremendously. I enjoy writing. I've always enjoyed writing, even as a young child. Our teacher would give us a list of spelling words every month, and I couldn't wait to get that list, because then she would have us create a story around the spelling words. And I loved that assignment, and that kind of sparked my joy for writing. Then we would read the stories in front of the class, and kids would laugh. So I thought, oh, they like these stories. I love to write. So that kind of sparked everything for me. And as I grew up, I still loved English, was one of my favorite classes. And, but then I always wanted to write a kid's book, but you grow up, go to college, get married, have, life kind of takes over. And finally, once my kids were grown, I said, I'm going to do it. That feeling never left me. And I wanted to write that book. And I really intended to write one, but it morphed into 3.
Okay. Well, we're happy it did, because your books, you have 3 different kind of themes, diversity, and you have them behind you. Would you mind showing us the cover?
Sure. So the first book, it's a series of 3. The first one's called The Good Eggs, and it teaches virtues.
Yes.
So if you go to the table of contents, I hope you can see this, but I wanted to start it like a school year. So it goes back, the kids go back to school in September. And then each month, I don't know if you can see that too well, but each month they learn a different virtue. So it starts with understanding, forgiveness, gratitude, generosity, cooperation, and so on and so forth. There's 12 for a dozen. And it's just about these little eggs. And they go back to school and they get into little kid situations that lend themselves to a virtue. So they're simple situations, but they're things that kids in elementary age can relate to. So then in one of these chapters, they win a recycling contest. And the United Nations ends up recognizing them for that and sends them on a trip around the world. And they learn about diversity. So this is the second year in their life. So they go, again, a dozen chapters. And they go to 10 different countries, because the first chapter is about how the trip gets set up, and the last one is what they've learned. So they go to Chile and Zambia and Australia and Italy and Norway and Israel and all around the world. And they learn, this was a lot of research. This book was so fun. They learn different language and customs and culture and landmarks. And all around the world, they meet other little eggs, and they connect with them and build relationships. And they realize, maybe we all practice things differently, but we all are human beings, and we all want the same things: to be loved, to be heard, to be known. And they realize that from that beautiful trip around the world. So that takes another year. And then I said, I'm not done with them yet. I got one more in me. And I bring them back home, and they learn the importance of community service. So the third year in their lives. And so they're growing even more. And this is a half dozen chapters, but they're twice as long. So they learn the importance of serving people in their community. So they help children, they help elders, they help animals, they go to a food bank, they put on a health program, and they go to a nature center. So it's a trilogy, a series of 3, and you see them grow and learn through being virtuous, through learning about diversity and how important it is to serve our community. So it's been a joy to write these. It really has.
It seems like a very comprehensive set. If I can ask, what, as a high school teacher, what made you say, I need to start this with elementary kids?
Well, my own personality, I've always liked cartoons and things like that, as I was a child. And I just always feel that kids, little ones, are the innocent ones. Mm-hmm. And starting at a young age, if they can incorporate some of this stuff into their lives at that young of an age, mm-hmm. they'll naturally carry it with them into their adulthood. Yeah. Putting kindness and empathy and compassion back into the world. Mm-hmm. So I thought you got to start with the young ones, because that's where we can form, they're so impressionable, and we inform them with goodness. And, think back to when you were a child, probably things are still stuck with you, mm-hmm. too. And that kind of sets them on a good, positive trajectory.
Yeah, we believe that as well, especially in our communities and in our groups. We talk all the time about starting as soon as you can. Yes. With as teaching these different things, especially through reading. Are your books picture books, Sandy?
Yes, they have illustrations. So I'll show you some. So, with each chapter, like there's one of the teacher teaching. There's one. I mean, each chapter has pictures. Let me see. There's one. They're out walking in the rain. So yeah, there are pictures in here. They're called chapter books, though. Because, they're like for third, fourth graders. Third, fourth,
and fifth.
But I do have an age group of 5 to 12 on there, because I have parents that read with their children. Mm-hmm. And then depending on the reading level of the child, they can read it themselves. But third graders and up definitely can read it themselves. And I put these little stopping points in here. Say they were reading it at night and they didn't want to finish a whole chapter. There's a little stopping points throughout so they can, have a natural break.
That's thoughtful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yes, we speak often about the importance of parents reading to their children. And I tell parents to negate the age range that publishers and authors put on books. I'm like, just read above their level. Like, it's okay to, to read with them, to read to them, ask them questions about the book. And I see the perfect opportunity for parents to bond with their kids and make sure that they're really teaching them these themes. And for those of you that have been listening or watching for quite some time, that one of the ways that I started was it was very important for me, especially as a single mom, right, to make sure that I was giving my son what he needed to go out into the world. And so I started like with Post-it notes, and I'm like, I'm going to, like, on Monday, kindness, that's going to be our focus. On Tuesday, compassion, that's going to be our focus. And I'm like, over time, if I drill these things into his head, he'll look back one day, as you were just saying earlier, Sandy, and he'll remember like little tidbits of what mommy was telling him. And then I was like, oh, I can do this through books.
Yeah, you're right. But it's good that you do it the other way too, because he looks up to you and he looks for your guidance and your love, and he trusts you to tell him the right things. Mm-hmm. And when they're building relationships with other adults when they grow older, that's going to click too.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I love the setup of your books, how fun they are. It looks very fun. And then you look inside, and you look at the cover of it, and it just looks really enjoyable. Then I love the way you broke the chapters down, the 12 for the dozen, for the eggs. So how did you go into deciding, especially in the first book, what those chapters and themes would be?
So the first book, like I said, once my kids grew and I said, now I have some time, I can finally sit down and write that book. I wanted it to be about goodness. So I was throwing the word good around in my head, like what could be good and what's good. And just good eggs popped into my head. And I said, I'm going to make the characters eggs.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to do that and make them colorful, all different colors,
Mm-hmm.
and have them all have like an idiosyncrasy that they all do.
Okay.
Have them all have a little different personality. And I wanted like 3 boys and 3 girls, like a group. I wanted them to be a group. And then there's like the troubled egg. His name's Benedict. So he's, yeah, all the other ones have egg in their name, and the teacher's name Miss Poach. And so it's a lot of fun. But the other eggs try to help him grow into himself. The first chapter finds us, he comes to town and he's angry because he has to move from his old hometown, and he meets the eggs, and he doesn't want to bond with them. And the first one's understanding. So they get to understand where he's really coming from.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I just kind of thought I wanted it to go on a monthly basis. And I started with September because that's when kids normally go back to school. And I thought, I'm going to take this once a month through a year and see how they develop through a year in their lives. So, like I said, I thought I was done with just one. But once I wrote that last chapter, I went, no, something else. I'm not done with these characters. So I said, I'm going to take them around the world. So then that's what I did. I wrote book 2, and then still wasn't done. I said, I'm going to bring them back home, and they're going to serve their community. So now I feel like it's a complete trilogy. So, well, I wrote the last page and I cried, because I knew that this was what I'm doing. This is the end of this particular project. So, but now my nonprofit grew out of the books. So I have a big project on my hands with, the books and the nonprofit. So now I egg communities, or I egg organizations or families once a month, following the pattern of the book, with any kind of help that they might need. So that's what the Good Eggs Foundation does. So all book proceeds go into the Good Eggs Foundation, so I can keep up my eggings in our community here.
So tell us more about the Good Egg Foundation. Exactly what is it?
So it's a nonprofit, and what it is based off the children's books, like I was explaining how they run on a monthly basis. Yeah. So it's based off of the books, and I wanted to put the books into action. So what I did was started a nonprofit, and what I do is seek out organizations in our wider community. And I see what a need may be. For example, last month I was in contact with a place here called Macomb Foster Closet, and they foster babies and young children, and they were in need of baby monitors. So I said, you've been egged. We're going to get you those baby monitors. So
wow,
we did. I purchased them, drove them over there. He gave us a tour of the place. Yeah. So I'm getting in touch with organizations that help children. And even people might contact me too. I had a person call me and say, can you egg this mother? She's a single mom who just lost her job, and she has a little girl, and she was devastated. And the one thing she was going to cut back on was her little girl's dance lessons. And her little girl just loves to dance. I mean, this girl is probably going to be a dancer. She just loves to dance. And she was just crushed that she couldn't. So I called the mom and I said, you've been egged. She's going to dance. So we finished her dance lessons for the year for her. So little things like that, that we do. I've done over 30 eggings. So I've done like toy drives for our children's center here in Detroit. So it's been a real great joy for me.
So many thoughts went through my head. First of all, thank you for all the wonderful work that you're doing. And I loved how you turned egging into a positive thing. Because I know when I was growing up.
Right. I know. Right. It's a positive egging for sure.
It was something completely different. And then it kind of reminds me of, this is kind of separate but related. In college, I went to Rutgers University in Jersey, and they had kind of like a secret, not a secret society, but it was like a secret honor society, I guess. And they would go through and like tap you if you were in it. And it was like this whole like thing, they would research you, of course, look up your grades, your service to the community and things like that. And you would get tapped if you were chosen. So when you said you've been egged, my mind just automatically just went back to that. And I went there because for a lot of our children, some of them don't really learn about service to the community until like college or high school, if they have if they just so happen to have those extracurriculars available.
Right.
Because some schools just don't. We kind of
Right.
take that for granted. Some schools don't have these extracurriculars, where they can do service for the community. So it's so wonderful that your books are showing us that, not just domestically, but abroad as well, how to go out into the world and do good, like your pillow says, and do good for other people.
Just be good. So
Yeah.
book 3, with the service that they do, they call and connect with the kids that they met around the world in book 2. And those
Mm.
kids in book 2 then start the same community service programs in their own countries. So that makes it a global connection too.
So you're not just showing our kids like to go, not that this is small by any means,
I
but
know.
they're not just showing them to go to like a soup kitchen and it's like they're building
They're
something.
Exactly. And they're learning from other people that they
Hmm.
wouldn't normally learn from. And in fact, in the one where they go to a soup kitchen, we come to find out that Benedict actually, when he was younger, his family needed assistance.
Hmm.
And he was so like glad to be able to help at the soup kitchen because he knows what that felt like.
Yeah.
um, yeah, you get these little patterns that go on where they can learn from everybody when they're at the senior living center. Sometimes people say, oh, what, put them out to pasture, like the way that sometimes elderly are treated. And they actually learned how to paint from one of the residents.
Hmm.
They learned how to dance from one of the residents. So they themselves, being children, learned from the older folks some valuable things. So
Yeah.
they connect with them. They don't just go, here you go, here's some food, I'm going home, or we collected this, I'm going home. No,
Hmm.
they connect with them as well. So
Yeah, and one of the things that you said there, I don't know if I want to use the word normalize, but I like that you put in your book about the child who was remembering that his family needed assistance, because
yes,
I think that that can be embarrassing for some kids.
yeah,
Yeah, so to
he
pick
ran
up
out
a
of the
book.
room. Right when they were there, they showed a little film of the
Mhm.
history of and he ran out of the room because
Yeah.
he felt that. Yes,
So one of the things that we talk about pretty often is that sometimes our kids feel like they're going through something on their own, right? So
right.
to be able to pick up a book and see another child that has experienced the same thing can give them so much comfort, and knowing like, oh, it's not just me that's
Right.
dealing with this. Other kids have as well. And I can turn it around and be of help to other people.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
And no matter where we are, I know that's one of your pillars or things you talk about as well. No matter how much we feel we have to give, we can all do good.
Exactly. You hit it on the head, Quinn.
Mhm.
You hit the nail on the head. Exactly. Thank you. Yeah, and I've gotten a mom emailed me and she was talking to one of her friends or something. It was around Christmas and they were talking about giving a present or giving to somebody, and her
Mhm.
little son pulled her arm and he said, "Mama, that's just like the good eggs." So he connected the Christmas chapter, and she didn't even
Yeah.
think he was listening. She was talking to her friend, and she goes, I don't know where he pulled that from, but he just connected it there. So that made me feel happy. And then I had a fifth grade teacher email me and said,
Mhm.
once her kids read book 3, they wanted to do that same service for their own community. So they
Mm.
ended up tutoring kids in their school. They put together baskets for an elder home in their community. They collected pet supplies for a local animal shelter. They did
Mhm.
everything that the eggs were doing, on a smaller level for their own community. So that made me happy too. I go, that's it. That's exactly what I want to
Yeah.
happen, for kids to emulate that.
That's one of my questions and you answered it already. So what it was like, so what are your intentions, or how did you want parents and children to walk away from this book, and you want them to take action?
Feel empowered and to feel like you said, like it's they're not alone, and
Mhm.
that they can walk this journey. Life's going to throw things at us all the time, and
Mhm.
that we can get through it. And the great thing for parents, I'm going to be starting a parent blog in September, and that's
Wonderful.
when the first chapter starts for the good eggs, and it's going to journey on an adult level. So it's just going to be a 1-page short blog. It'll say what happens in the chapter, and then what Benedict or whatever, Gregory, whoever was going through it, they can read about what their reaction was, and then how the other eggs reacted, and then how you can explain to your child, like understanding, what does it mean to stand under? You have to say, help me understand, not, oh, I've been through that, you'll be okay. People don't want to hear that, especially to a child. They need to verbalize, help me understand what you're feeling. Help me understand what's going on. And that's kind of how the eggs approached Benedict when he was angry and ran away because he didn't want to move. And so it'll be some good tips for parents. And I give some suggestions that you can do at home as well. And I also have a kids podcast.
Okay.
So I'm up to chapter 7 so far. I'll be completing chapter 8 soon. But if parents, sometimes they don't want their kids on a screen, they could be playing and listening to the podcast, and they journey through the chapters of the book as well. And then I always give them a little challenge at the end, like, hey, if you're see somebody at school alone, why don't you invite them over to sit with you? Or, something, a little challenge at the end of each chapter for them. So
that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Guys, all this is right up our alley. I feel like I'm looking at Sandy and hearing so many of the things we talk about so often, and she's just bringing it to life and talking to us about it. All of this information, I mean, you mentioned so much, the podcast, the parent blog that's coming. We can all find it through thegooteggs.org.
Yeah.
Okay.
And another thing, so there's a free chapter that I can send to them. So if they go to the contact page, there's several check boxes. And if they put, please send me a free chapter, I can do that. And I also have, if they want to become a member of the site, I have 12 lesson plans and 12 videos that go along with book 1. So it gives some suggestions on how to either incorporate things. If you happen to be a teacher or a parent at home, you can incorporate the same suggestions. So if they sign up to be a member, they can have access to the members page.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sandy. I'm going to give you guys Sandy's Facebook page information as well, so that you can find her. But all the information that she is talking about is also on her website at thegooteggs.org. Sandy, thank you so much for coming and joining us and talking about your books and all of your work today.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Is there anything else on your heart to share about your books or your work?
Just, if anything they want to know, again, there's also a book, it's called a book media sheet that kind of has everything outlined on there. If they want some questions to ask their kids as they journey through the books, those are on there as well, like book club. I've had teachers and parents, do community groups of book clubs, and there's questions there too. So
wonderful.
They can always email me, contact me and with any questions.
Awesome. We love the questions. Thank you so much for all the resources, Sandy. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Quinn.
No problem. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.